Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. Before we begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Achakorash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and taught us this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect that's out there listening, learning, and or teaching. Shalom. All right, so today I just wanted to go into this topic of Charlie Kirk. And as you know, I believe, I did make a mention of him on my last video. All right, so, long story short, this guy is a political activist, right wing, who basically, had that right wing viewpoint and did not like so-called African Americans. All right, he always talked about how, there's no such thing as racism and shit like that, and going into how, our people commit the most crime, this, that, and the third, but they're the smallest group of people, basically blaming crime on, your race. Oh, your race just, happens to commit the most crime. So, for lack of just roughly paraphrasing some of the things he said. So, this man was shot and killed from what I believe reports are saying by another so-called white man. Okay, so as you can see, his entire career and everything he was pushing, okay, how ironic how his life ended not at the hands of, as he would say, a thug or a so-called black man, but no, his own people unalived him, man. All right, and this is what a lot of these Edomites, a lot of these so-called white people can't figure out. They want to blame the fall of America on our people, because they refuse to believe that we just simply are the superior people. Okay, like the scriptures say, they will never want to admit that to themselves. So in their mind, they think, well, shit, we're just ruining everything. They don't realize, these so-called white people, that their own so-called white leaders are the ones destroying them and their country, man. They got you so-called white people working slave jobs just like niggas. And you're over here thinking that, oh yeah, it's the Mexicans, they took all our jobs. That's why we can't afford to pay rent, this, that, and the third. You see, people are the scriptures don't lie when they say, well, the scriptures never lie. But, the scriptures say that these Edomites are the basest of all men, the lowest of all men, because they're very simple-minded, man. They're wise in this world, in their own kingdom. They have access to superior foods and, more money and much more privilege. Life is just, they're living it on easy mode. So, of course, their mind's going to be a little sharper than ours at times. Okay, but even then, these people are just base. Okay, but here's his Wikipedia, and you can kind of go down. And what I want to go into today, just what this guy thought. He calls himself a Christian. True Christian according to the Bible is an Israelite, which, the Apostle Tahar brought out. He might be an Israelite, this guy. Okay. But, believing in white Jesus does not make you a Christian. All right. It's just really part of white supremacy. And that's what a lot of these, pretty much all these Christians are, whether they know it or not. They're white supremacists. And that's what this guy was. But let's see if I could find the title of the section. Here we go. It talks about race. It says, Kirk said that the concept of white privilege is a myth and a racist idea. Okay, so he's on that reverse racism bullshit. Okay, talking about how, there's white people have it just as hard as black people. Kirk served on President Donald Trump's 1776 commission, a response to the 1619 project, assuming more hard right positions. He said that Democratic immigration policies were aimed at diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America, right? So attacking both sides, or Salakia, attacking both the northern kingdom, you so-called blacks, and Salakia, the southern kingdom. It's been a long day, brother. Salakia for that. Southern kingdom, the so-called blacks, and the northern kingdom, the so-called Latinos. Okay. In October 2021, Kirk began the Exposing Critical Racism tour of a number of campuses and off-campus venues to fight racist theories on America's college campuses. Kirk posted on Instagram in March 2024 that the Great Replacement is not a theory, it's a reality. So what is this Great Replacement? It says, also known as replacement theory, or Great Replacement theory is a debunked white nationalist far-right conspiracy theory originally espoused by French author. The originally states the complicity or cooperation of, we can't even get all of it anyway, but it's basically saying that, that they're trying to replace so-called white people. It's not a theory, it's reality. Alongside this statement, Kirk shared a screenshot from a Fox News story headline that read, 7.2 million illegals enter the U.S. under Biden's administration, an amount greater than population of 36 states. So you could already see where this guy is going with what he believes. Okay, you could read this for yourself, but I just wanted to give you guys a little idea before we go into this video. Here he's debating with a so-called black man about it says here, what's really hurting black America. Okay, so I'm just going to let it play. This is fair use for educational purposes only, because you know how YouTube gets down. So anyway, let's get it started.
Baked into the idea of white privilege is that inherently in our culture of society, somebody that has white skin color in this audience has extra privileges that you as a black individual do not have. Can you list what those are?
Sure. When FDR employed the New Deal to counteract the Great Depression, this came with resources that was allowed it to white people. Banks denied 99% of qualified black applicants while also accepting 99% of white applicants.
But today in 2025.
You see, so, and I don't mean to interject, but basically I wanted to emphasize that point. The brother here said, or the Israelites said, some time ago, basically that most black applicants would get denied from getting a bank account, and most whites were allowed, okay? And he quickly just goes, in 2025, okay, which is simple-minded, man. And this is why we don't even do debates, because debates is really just mental gymnastics. It's not a good way to find out what the truth is. It's a good way to find out who's better at winning arguments, okay? But clearly, if the racism was that terrible back then, okay, you could imagine that these so-called white people today have generational wealth and they continue in their father's footsteps. Okay, so clearly there would be at least a remnant of that today. Would there not be, Mr. Charlie Kirk? All right, but let's continue.
Today in 2025, as I alluded to you, they've done studies in psychology where white-sounding names receive jobs or callbacks more than black-sounding names. They did the two names. It was a white young lady named Anna Scott, and it was a black young lady named Lakeisha Washington. They both put in 80 job applications. Lakeisha Washington received 9 callbacks and received 75 callbacks out of 80.
That's a good point. I actually, that study is debated, but let's pretend it's true. Do you think it's racism or something else?
I think that answer is multifaceted.
It's clearly racism.
Let me make the best. Sorry to interrupt you. If we live under a status of DEI and people are getting jobs that they're not qualified for, wouldn't that an applicant then assume maybe that an applicant might be there based on DEI, not on merit? It actually creates more racism where it doesn't exist.
You know what? Esau does that shit on purpose, man. Okay, they'll give them, the government will have these quotas at the job. You got to have a certain amount of colored people and women, right? Whatever. And so they'll hire, like they did with the fire chief. I forgot what town that was in, but there was some fires somewhere that couldn't be put out, and they blamed it on this so-called black woman, this incredibly morbidly obese so-called black woman, right? Because they put her as the chief of the firefighters, okay? And Esau will do that shit on purpose to blame our people, man, because you got to remember the scriptures call him the devil, which is what? The false accuser. Okay, so how do you falsely accuse, on a high level? You got to set people up, right? There's no lack of qualified so-called colored people for any particular field, but they'll purposely choose the underqualified ones just to what? To push that narrative. Oh, see, it's this DEI. You see, because it's all part of a greater conspiracy, man. Like the scriptures say, Psalms 83. Okay, all the nations are in league against who? Yasharallah. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Because why? Because you're the Israelites, man. All right, they don't want us to be over them. Okay, but it's not, they ain't going to have a choice. Eventually, Yahushua is going to come and set up the kingdom. Okay, but this is how they keep power for now, through these lies, man.
So DEI is not about going and grabbing some random person of color and saying you therefore qualified. DEI is about considering other qualified applicants.
Well, let's take airline pilots. United Airlines wants 40% all of their airline pilots to be women or people of color. Why does that matter? Number one, because I want a qualified airline pilot, not a person of color airline pilot.
Understood.
So you agree. But number two, there's only so many airline pilots jobs. So when you say we want 40%, by definition, then you have to discriminate against a certain group to get another group to advance, right?
Understood.
Because there's not unlimited amounts of spots for airline pilots or air traffic control or surgeons or whatever position. So when you say that we want to have a quota, that then you have to say we're not going to prioritize a certain group. Let me tell you what I believe, and maybe you might actually agree with it, because I think you do. What we believe as conservatives is that skin color really doesn't matter that much. We care about character and merit. We want a country built on what you bring to the table, not how you look.
Exactly. And America started out with that based on merit, and theoretically it was supposed to work. In practice, it did not, which is why you have these different...
Right, in practice, you Edomites are so racist, okay, you'd rather choose an underqualified Edomite than a qualified Jake. That's what this guy is saying. And he, the video's kind of going fast and he might brush past it real quick. But, that's a very good point. Okay, because, that's what these Edomites do. That's why those DEI programs were created. Okay, which, we're not going to go too deep into how they were created or why or whatever. But, based off what he's saying, it counteracts the racism. Okay.
Affirmative action, DEI, and the Civil Rights Act, because they were not working. You cannot ignore that these policies were created to counteract racism. A counteract to racism is not racism in itself.
Right. So if you're trying to counteract racism, that's not racism in itself. Okay, and if these so-called white people are so racist that a system has to be set up to counteract the racism, you can't cry racism against that system, man. Because ultimately, that's these Edomites' fault. Okay, here they are. They have the whole country. They have all the power. They have all the money. They've had our people in slavery for hundreds of years. Raped, robbed, and murdered them. Okay, and now this guy just wants to brush everything under the rug and pretend like, oh, it's all fair game now. Everybody's on an equal playing field. There's no remnant of racism. Racism is all gone. It just came and went. No, that's not how it works. The scriptures say the Edomites have that perpetual hatred, man. All right? Let's get that real quick. This is Ezekiel 35:5. And actually, let's see. Here we go. Let's actually read a little bit up. Verse 1, moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir. The word Mount Seir is another word for Esau, Edom, which we know is the so-called white man today, and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee. So the Lord is against these people, man, because they're wicked. They're merciless, wicked, okay, amongst other things, and they're just beyond wicked, okay. See how they play these mental gymnastics. With the example with this guy, man, he clearly knows there's racism, but he's pretending like there isn't. He's trying to put the burden of proof, on this Israelite guy. And that's how all these Edomites are. Okay, they get amongst their little circles of so-called white people, and there's the mildly racist Edomite, which is like most of them, and then there's the super racist ones, and they all got friends that are racist as hell, man. And these circles all work together in these different jobs. They know this is a problem, man, but they pretend and act like it doesn't exist. You see, that's being sneaky. And then they falsely accuse when Jake gets roused up, because Jake is oppressed. You got a bunch of people in a hood, no opportunity, no generational wealth. Okay, the father's been ran out of the house, no structure. You grow up struggling. Okay, you end up turning to crime, and they just pretend like, oh, well, that's not our problem. That's your fault. Which I'm not condoning crime, but I'm just saying these devils, they don't look at the bigger picture because they don't want to, because they hate Jake. It's hate, right? Racism, it should really just be the word hatred. It's not systemic racism, it's systemic hatred. That's what it really is, okay? Verse 3, and say unto it, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee. I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. You see, so these devils, these Edomites, came against our people with the sword, man. All right? Took us over and then put us in slavery. And it's never ending, man. It's a perpetual hatred. Here we are in 2025. All right? And most people who are in poverty are who? Jake, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. And you got people like this actively fighting against any form of mercy against our people, or for our people. Playing mental gymnastics. All right? Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their calamity, Salakia, that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. And isn't that ironic, man? That's how this guy got put to death, by the sword. Okay? So that blood pursued him because he pursued blood. Okay? Because he did not, Salakia. How does it say? Because thou hast not hated blood, right? These Edomites, they don't hate blood. They love blood. And that's why blood pursued him. And funny enough, we saw him get his neck blown out and gushing blood like a goddamn waterfall out his neck, man. Got put to death by the Lord. You see? And you know what? There's a scripture that talks about... let's get this real quick. This is Sirach chapter 34 and verse 22. He that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him. Right, so, if you get rid of somebody's ability to work, by throwing their applications to the trash because they're so-called black, or because their name is LaQuisha or whatever, or Tyrone, and you're like, oh, this is a black man. Oh, he's just a thug. And he throw it in the trash. Well, you're killing him, man. If he's qualified for the job over the other guy, okay, or if you create a system that subjects these people to not be able to get good quality jobs, okay, that's murder. It says, he that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him, and he that defraudeth the laborer of his hire is a what? A bloodshedder. And that's why Ezekiel says these Edomites have not hated blood, man, because that's what they do. This guy's fighting for his right to continue to murder our people.
I reject the premise, and I will say this. If you do something racist on top of something racist, that doesn't make the second racist action good. Because
all right, so just take it, just shut the fuck up, and racist so-called white person doesn't want to hire you, then you should just take it. Just take it and just go to the next racist white person and beg them twice as much, and hopefully you could get hired on. That's what he's saying.
Discriminate against white people to say that we're fighting racism,
Here,
then
let's
that's
go
not
back,
a good
'cause
idea.
I've been
something racist, that doesn't make the second racist action good. Because if you discriminate against white people to say that we're fighting racism, then that's not a good idea. But instead, I think you can agree that when we build a society like college admissions or job applications, we should say no quotas and just merit. You agree?
I agree.
Then you're against DEI, because DEI says quotas.
Yeah, let me finish. I agree to a certain extent. So when you mention about discriminating against whites, of course, I don't agree with that.
Well, that is DEI, just so we're clear.
Right, and I'm going to say it again.
Cool, all right.
DEI was created to offset racism. We left it up to majority of white America to include people of color or qualifying credentials. They would not. So my argument is that you're saying it's reverse racism. My argument is that it needed to be there to counteract racism. Sounds like we need to find a different solution for both parties.
I have a great solution. Stop talking about race all the time. Race doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, just live in La La Land, like all these other jakes out here talking about how they want Esau to make it into the kingdom. Oh yeah, well, you saying we gonna be saved because we Israelites, but what about the white man? Come on, man, we gotta love everybody, man. You see, that's what that's the type of so-called black man that he's mildly okay with. Okay, but no, man, these Edomites are always gonna hate you, Jake. That's what you gotta realize, man. All right. You know what the real solution to all this shit is? These so-called white people being in slavery under the Israelites. That's the solution, man. Them going into slavery so they can see how it feels. All right, for about 1,000 years. I think that's a good amount of time, as the scriptures say. All right, and then after that, they still not gonna learn their lesson. All right, but soon in Obadiah chapter 1, it says that they're gonna be rounded up and set on fire, and that's it. That's the end of the Edomites. That's the only fucking solution, man. All right? I'm getting into this video just to bring out some edification on, according to what the scriptures say about these devils. Okay? And we're hearing both talking points, which, it's interesting talking points. But at the end of the day, man, okay, likely none of these people in here, nobody has the solution, man, because the truth is rare. Okay, you can hear the truth out on highways and byways, us making these videos. All right, start with the apostles of Great Millstone, the men on down, the affiliates. Okay, but most of these people in the world have no idea. Okay, they just debating, going back and forth. Okay, but these Edomites have shown themselves to be wicked, and when they're put in check, they cry racism. They play the race card when they're in no position to do it, man. The Edomites have been getting everything handed to them on a silver platter. All right, and now that Jake is lacing himself up from the bootstrap, they want to keep their foot on his neck, man. All right, but yeah, I'm gonna let it play a little longer.
Because I look at you not as a black guy, but as a human being made in the image of God, and I want to know what you bring to the table. Are you good at the job? Are you better than your competitor? Because let me just pause for a second. I just want you to hear out what we believe. Is that when you talk about race all the time, you start to resegregate society based on tribes, and you lose this idea of e pluribus unum, all made in the image of God, out of many one. And yes, we have made many mistakes in our past, but we were getting closer as a country in
E pluribus unum, that's on the dollar bill. All right, and what about the other one, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is New World Order? You see, why don't we talk about that? That's what these Edomite elites want to do. These international bankers and all that, all right, with the chip, okay. This for buying and selling. Ultimately, that's what's gonna happen. Okay, but that's it on this video, man. Okay, I just wanted to bring out, what type of person this guy was so you can see, and then we're gonna read these scriptures and close out, Lord's will. This is Exodus chapter 22 and verse 21. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay, now this law was written for the Israelites. All right, we're the only ones who the Lord gave his statutes and commandments to. We're the only ones who made a covenant with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. That being said, okay, the Lord is against oppression, man. Okay? Thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. Who's the widow and the fatherless child? Is you Israelites, man. All right? That's how that applies to us today. All right? And of course, you're not supposed to afflict a widow or fatherless child, literally either. Okay? But most Jakes grow up fatherless. Most Jakes grow up fatherless, lack of opportunity, lack of any form of experience, and they gotta, exert extreme discipline to be on the level of an Edomite who had his dad his whole life, who taught him how to change car tires and how to build sheds and how to repair his bike and play sports and all that, and Jake's over there sitting in a house with the father absent, watching Tom and Jerry eating Rice Krispies. Okay, and he's got to compete with these Edomites on top of the racism. And this guy just wants to brush all that under the rug and pretend like we both come from the same place, and that you Israelites, you don't deserve any form of remedy in this fucked up situation that these Edomites put you in. They just want to brush it all under the rug and act like, well, it's your problem now. Yeah, we fucked you up and made you build our country for us, and we continue to fuck you up to this day, but we'll give you a chance if you just outwork every Edomite. We'll let you be our one DEI hire, sure. But it says, ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child, right? And he's afflicting us through his words, and all these Edomites are afflicting us, really. Okay? It says, if thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. And the Lord's hearing our cries, man. Every day we pray, we send up curses on this place, America, Babylon. All right? And the Lord hears our cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword. The modern day sword is the gun. And your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. And ironically enough, that's what happened to this Charlie Kirk. All right? You see? He got put to death by the sword. Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai put him to death. And now his wife is a widow, and his children fatherless. Verse 25, if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. You see? Why? Because it's something called mercy, something that this guy clearly doesn't have, man. Clearly. He just wants to sweep everything his ancestors did under the rug, if he's an Edomite. But if he's a Jake, then he's just a hard-headed, fucking Uncle Tom. Okay? But either way, he just wants to have no pity on the Israelites, man, who clearly need help, man. All right? It's like if you have a friend, right? And you fuck him up somehow, you're supposed to make it up to him, right? Unless you're no longer cool with each other, right? You do something stupid and you piss him off. I can't think of any examples right now, but you could get creative and think about something. Maybe you borrowed his car and crashed it into a ditch. All right, you owe him. Not just be like, well, honestly, dude, if you want me to just give you a handout, because of what I did last year, dude, that was last year, bro. Let bygones be bygones. All right, why? Let's just be cool right now, man. I don't know why you're so mad and you want me to give you a free car, man. That's a handout. You see, because these Edomites think just because they did it, their ancestors did it, now their hands are clean. No, that's not how it works, man. Your grandfather had slaves. Your father got that generational wealth passed on to him. All those blessings, and then he's passing that on to you. That's why you could sit there in a t-shirt and fly on a private jet over here to talk shit and then go back to your mansion. That's why you were born in the suburbs and you've never seen struggle, man. You see? Yeah, but they'll never get that. It says, verse 26, if thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down, for that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin. Wherein shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me that I will hear, for I am gracious. Okay, yeah, because the Lord is something called common sense, man. I mean, I'm not talking to these damn Edomites, but just so you Israelites could understand, man, these people really hate us and they want nothing to do with us. And Donald Trump is getting ready to send these troops to Chicago and escalate this ICE situation. Okay, the Lord said, bring him back his only covering, man, because where will he sleep? Right, thinking about other people and how if you take from somebody that already has little, it's going to fuck them up. It's just like simple shit, bro. But again, these Edomites, they're sneaky and they play mental gymnastics and act like, it's nothing. All that shit that happened to your ancestors, that's just, we're in 2025. That doesn't exist anymore, right? You see? But no, man, the Lord is gracious. The Lord sees all these injustices our people have to go through, man. And ultimately, the answer is not to fucking debate or, trust in Egypt. Like these people out here trust in Egypt, especially you Israelites that are voting. Don't even vote, man. Okay, it is no point. Okay, my vote is on Yahushua. That's the only one who's going to set up a righteous government here on the earth. Okay, other than that, we're going to be under the rule of these Edomites until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, man. And that's when Yahushua will crack the clouds and come back, man. Because it's only through him that we'll get salvation out of this hell. The scripture said our people would be scattered into corners. Okay, that's them ghettos, man. And how we would serve slavery to a fierce nation that pitied neither young nor old, right? They lack pity. They lack empathy, man. That's the spirit. That's that so-called white man spirit here in America. All right? But yeah, man. Hey, the Lord is cold, man. The Lord don't play. And of course, it goes without saying, this could have been a psyop. Very likely. Okay, I heard some things, how this guy was speaking against the small hats not too long before he got put down. So, hey, that might have something to do with it. Maybe he said something out of turn, maybe, the official story is that it was an alphabet white person that killed him. Who knows, man? But at the end of the day, the word of the Lord still stands, man. This was the Lord's judgment. All right, but if he's an Israelite, then he'll be fine. He'll just come back on the other side in his right mind. All right, but with that being said, I pray this lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwarash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and taught us his truth. Shalom Wa, Abad Babal, Shalom.